So what got me interested is when I was younger, I used to run home to watch the after school special. I remember one in particular where it was a Just Say No to Drugs one. And it was this really harrowing scene where this teenager was supposed to be watching his brother, but he got, high on something. It was never clear what it was. And the little boy drowned in the pool. And it was devastating, right? And I'm thinking, oh, this is devastating. But then I remember thinking, wait a minute, what are they trying to really, who are they talking to here? What are they trying to get across? And I never watched it alone. I always watched it with my friends, and they had totally different reactions than what I did. And so I'm thinking, here's the same thing. We're all sitting together watching the same exact thing, but we're all having totally different reactions and conversation points about the same material. And that was fascinating to me. So I became instantly interested in how do we persuade people to do things, to think a certain way, behave a certain way, and that's where it all got started. So what I love about this generation is their openness and their willingness to just look at somebody for who they are as an individual. I'm not saying that there isn't this in-group, out-group thing that we've known for, forever, but there seems to be a lot more willingness to be empathetic about somebody else's plight and how their actions may or may not affect someone else's plight. And so to me, that's a huge plus in especially a more mediated world where we're more seen than we've ever been. And so having that empathy, having that openness and that willingness is a real bonus, in my opinion. I would take much more risks because I was the first daughter of farm worker immigrants. I didn't want to fail because if I failed, everybody failed, right? It was everybody's failure, not just my own. And so I was very focused, and I mean focused. I didn't join any clubs. I didn't really do a lot of getting to know other students outside of the classroom. So I had a lot of classroom buddies, but not a lot of people that I did a lot with outside of school. So if I had to do over, I would have taken more risks. But outside of that, I think I would have I'm really happy with the path that I've taken. I think I probably would have majored in the same thing. And if I'd had more time, I would have either double majored in psych or I would have taken more time to do a study abroad. That I always said yes. Nothing was handed to me. One time I made the mistake of saying, oh, I'm just very lucky. And one of the women who I've known for a very long time said, don't say that. You totally diminish the work that you put in when you say you were lucky. You weren't lucky. You worked really hard. And you also were always willing to say, I'll do that. I'll take that on. I can do that. And that's really what let open doors for me. I'm also very outgoing. And so I'm always the first one to go, hi, I'm so-and-so, let me tell you about this, or what do you think about that? And I think that was really helpful to my career because I would take the shyest person in the room and make sure they felt seen and heard. And so I think that really helped me along. Was I in the right place at the right time? I feel like I was. But again, not wanting to minimize the work I put in, as my mentor suggested, it was a lot of hard work and it was a lot of willingness to try things that I wasn't comfortable with, or that whole fake it till you make it. Yep. I never appreciated where I was at the time when I was there. And I find myself doing that even today. I'm always, what's the next thing? What am I working for now? What am I working towards now? What skills do I need to develop? What classes do I need to take? What books do I need to read? Now that I look back, I think, oh my God, I remember when I used to do this. And I look back on it with a lot of nostalgia. And so I think for me, it's not being in the moment more, which I hope you're seeing a thread there. Like I wasn't in the moment much in college either. When you're a planner, a worrier, and I think I still struggle with that. A lot of support. A lot of support. I have always been really comfortable taking more on because there was always someone there to say, yep, just go for it. I support you. And that started with my family, who was always super supportive of, there was no other option. I was going to go to school, I was going to make something of myself. Their sacrifices were for me, for their children to do better. And so I had that support from day one, and I realized so many of my students don't, and that's devastating to me. And moving forward, my husband's super supportive. My little guy, who's 13, is super supportive. And so I'm also really well supported by a lot of wonderful colleagues and some really fantastic mentors who have helped guide me. And so I can't stress the importance of surrounding yourself with people who are interested in your success and in helping guide you, but are also really willing to tell you when you're going the wrong way or you're taking on the wrong attitude. I lose a lot of sleep over tough decisions. Like I said earlier, I'm very much a planner and a worrier. And so sometimes I plan and worry about things that aren't even on the horizon. I make things up, I swear. Worst case scenario. And then I'm worst case scenario, and then I haven't even planned that well for that scenario. So I'm not even sure why I do that to myself. But I do plan a lot, I worry a lot, and that's not great. It's not a great way to roll. But it has saved me in a pinch. How young social media was. And I think also because I'm a media person, right, I think about those things. I'm a little bit nostalgic as an old person about everybody watching the same thing at the same time. So remember how I said in the beginning how we would all rush home from school to watch the after school special, because if you missed it and somebody didn't videotape it, that was it. But the point was that you watched it with everyone at the same time that it aired, so that you could talk about it and then talk about it at school the next day. And that was the case for me when I first started working as well. And now it's like, hey, so are you watching so-and-so? Oh, where's that streaming? What platform is that on? Oh, I'll binge watch it this weekend, or maybe I'll get to it next year. And so I think that what we'll be nostalgic about is the availability of the different platforms. I think we'll see some changes there. And I think we'll look back on this time as a more open time in its availability and its scope. I think will be narrower as the bigger companies take over. That's a really hard one too, because food and books are probably my favorite thing of all time. And so asking me to pick, that's like asking me to pick a favorite child, which is probably why I only had one. I didn't want to play that game. But for some reason, one of the books that really moved me and has stayed with me, I mean, there are many, I'm a voracious reader. That was, I'm so thankful for my sad little hometown, but that we had a fantastic Carnegie library. Thank you, Carnegie, for that one. And I read everything I can get my hands on, and I still read every chance I get. But one book that I think it's been at least 10 or 12 years since I read it, it's called A Fine Balance, and it's about it's a fictionalized story about several folks in India. And it was one of the books where, a lot of books have moved me, where I've cried or I've laughed out loud, or one book I felt extreme loneliness for the character. But this one, I was finishing reading it while my family was watching something on TV, and the end of it just infuriated me so much that I threw the book across the room. And I've never done that before, because one, I revere books. I don't even write in them, so throwing it across the room, especially since it's a library loaner, was not something I would normally do. But it moved me so much, and I still can't quite verbalize what it was, but it stayed with me that long. And so whenever somebody asks, what's your favorite book, rather than going with, one of the literary greats, I go back to that one, because it really helped me see how lucky I was, and how sometimes misfortune just happens to be of no doing of your own, just your luck of where you were born, at what time and what place and to whom. And it was infuriating and devastating, and I felt so helpless for these fictionalized characters, but knowing that those people exist, and that I felt so small and so little to be able to help. So I recommend it, because hopefully students can also gain insight into how that is, and how as a result of that, we should be more aware of the opportunities that we should be grateful to have, but also aware of the opportunities that we have that others don't.